Let us begin.
Chapter 88, The Deliverance of Lord Shiva. As a great devotee of Krishna, King Pariksit was already liberated, but for clarification, he was asking various questions of Sukadeva Goswami. In the previous chapter, King Pariksit's question was, what is the ultimate goal of the Vedas? And Sukadeva Goswami explained the matter, giving authoritative descriptions from the disciplic succession, from Shanadananda down to Narayana Rishi. Narada, Vyasadeva, and then Sukadeva himself. The conclusion was that devotional service or bhakti is the ultimate goal of the Vedas. A neophyte devotee may question, if the ultimate goal of life or the conclusion of the Vedas is to elevate oneself to the platform of devotional service, then why is it observed that a devotee of Lord Vishnu is generally not very prosperous materially, whereas a devotee of Lord Shiva is found to be very opulent? In order to clarify this matter, Parikshit Maharaj asked Sukadeva Goswami, "My dear Sukadeva Goswami, it is generally found that those who engage in the worship of Lord Shiva, whether in human, demonic, or demigod society, become materially very opulent, although Lord Shiva himself lives just like a poverty-stricken person. On the other hand, the devotees of the Lord Vishnu, who is the controller of the goddess of fortune, do not appear very prosperous, and sometimes they are even found living without any material opulence at all. Lord Shiva lives underneath a tree or in the snow of the Himalayan mountains. He does not even construct a house for himself, but still the worshippers of Lord Shiva are very rich. Krishna, or Lord Vishnu, however, lives very opulently, whether in Vaikuntha or in the material world, but his devotees appear poverty-stricken. Why is this so?" Maharaj Pariksit's question is very intelligent. The two classes of devotees, namely the devotees of Lord Shiva and the devotees of Lord Vishnu, are always in disagreement. Even today in India, these two classes of devotees still criticize each other, and especially in South India, the followers of Ramanujacharya and the followers of Sankaracharya hold occasional meetings for understanding the Vedic conclusion. Generally, the followers of Ramanujacharya come out victorious in such meetings. So Pariksit Maharaj wanted to clarify the situation by asking this question of Sukadeva Goswami, that Lord Shiva lives as a poor man, although his devotees appear very opulent, whereas Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu is always opulent, and yet his devotees appear poverty-stricken, is a situation which appears contradictory and puzzling to a discriminating person. Replying to King Pariksit's inquiry, Sukadeva Goswami said that Lord Shiva is the master of the material energy. The material energy is represented by Goddess Durga, and because Lord Shiva happens to be her husband, Goddess Durga is completely under his subjugation. Thus, Lord Shiva is understood to be the master of the material energy. The material energy is manifested in three qualities, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance, and therefore Lord Shiva is the master of these three qualities. Although he is in association with these qualities for the benefit of the conditioned soul, Lord Shiva is their director and is not affected. In other words, although the conditioned soul is affected by the three qualities, Lord Shiva, being their master, is not. From the statements of Sukadeva Goswami, we can understand that the effects of worshipping different demigods are not different, as some less intelligent persons suppose, the same as the effects of worshipping Lord Vishnu. Sukadeva Goswami clearly states that by worshipping Lord Shiva, one achieves one reward, whereas worshipping Lord Vishnu, one achieves a different reward. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Those who worship the different demigods achieve the desired results the respective demigods can reward. Similarly, those who worship the material energy receive the suitable reward for such activities, and those who worship the Pitras receive similar results. But those who engage in devotional service or worship of the Supreme Lord, Vishnu or Krishna, go to the vacant planets or Krishna Lok. One cannot approach the transcendental region or Parayoma, the spiritual sky, by worshipping Lord Shiva or Brahma or any other demigod. Since this material world is a product of the three qualities of material nature, all varieties of manifestations come from those three qualities. With the aid of materialistic science, modern civilization has created many machines and comforts, yet they are only varieties of their interactions of the three material qualities. Although the devotees of Lord Shiva are able to obtain many material acquisitions, we should know that such devotees are simply collecting products manufactured by the three qualities. The three qualities are again subdivided into 16, namely the 10 senses, that is 5 working senses and 5 knowledge-acquiring senses. The mind and the 5 elements, which are the earth, water, fire, air, and sky. These 16 items are extensions of the three qualities. Material happiness or opulence means gratification of the senses, especially the genitals, the tongue, and the mind. By exercising our mind, we create many pleasurable things just for enjoyment by the genitals and the tongue. The opulence of a person within this material world is estimated in terms of his exercise of the genitals and the tongue, or in other words, how well he is able to utilize his sexual capacities and how well he is able to satisfy his fastidious taste by eating palatable dishes. Material advancement of civilization necessitates creating objects of enjoyment by mental concoction, just to become happy on the basis of these two principles, pleasures for the genitals and pleasures for the tongue. Herein lies the answer to King Parikshit's question to Sukadeva Goswami as to why the worshippers of Lord Shiva are so opulent. The devotees of Lord Shiva are opulent only in terms of the material qualities. Factually, such so-called advancement of civilization is the cause of entanglement in the material existence. It is actually not advancement, but degradation. The conclusion is that Lord Shiva is the master of the three qualities. His devotees are given things manufactured by their interaction of these qualities for the satisfaction of the senses. In the Bhagavad Gita, however, we get instruction from Lord Krishna that one has to transcend this qualitative exercise. Nishray Guna Bhavarjuna, the mission of human life, is to become transcendental to the three qualities. Unless one is Nishray Guna, he cannot get free from the material entanglement. In other words, favors received from Lord Shiva are not actually beneficial to the conditioned souls, although materially such facilities seem opulent. Sukadeva Goswami continued, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is transcendental to the three qualities of material nature. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord states that anyone who surrenders unto him surpasses the control of the three qualities of material nature. Therefore, since Hari's devotees are transcendental to the control of the three material qualities, certainly he himself is transcendental. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is therefore stated that Hari or Krishna is the original Supreme Personality. There are two kinds of praktis or potencies, namely the internal potency and the external potency, and Krishna is the overlord of both. He is Sarvadrik, or the overseer of all actions of the internal and external potencies, and he is also described as Upadrashta, the supreme advisor. Because he is the supreme advisor, he is above all the demigods who merely follow the directions of the supreme advisor. As such, if one directly follows the instructions of the Supreme Lord, as inculcated in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, then one gradually becomes nirguna, or above the interactions of the material qualities. To be nirguna means to be bereft of material opulences, because as we have explained, material opulence means an increase of the actions and reactions of the three material qualities. By worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, instead of being puffed up with material opulences, one becomes enriched with spiritual advancement of knowledge in Krishna consciousness. To become nirguna means to achieve eternal peace, fearlessness, religiousness, knowledge, and renunciation. All these are symptoms of becoming free from the contamination of material qualities. Sukadeva Goswami, in answering Parikshit Maharaj's question, went on to cite a historical instance regarding Parikshit Maharaj's grandfather, King Yudhishthira. He said that after finishing the Ashwamedha sacrifice in the great sacrificial arena, King Yudhishthira, in the presence of the great authorities, inquired from Lord Krishna on that very same point. How is it that the devotees of Lord Shiva become materially opulent, whereas the devotees of Lord Vishnu do not? Sukadeva Goswami specifically referred to King Yudhishthira as your grandfather, so that Maharaj Pariksit would be encouraged to think that he was related to Krishna and that his grandfathers were intimately connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although by nature Krishna is always very satisfied, when Maharaj Yudhishthira asked this question of the Lord, became even more satisfied, because this question and its answer would bear a great meaning for the entire Krishna conscious society. Whenever Lord Krishna speaks about something to a specific devotee, it is meant not only for that devotee, but for all devotees, and indeed for the entire human society. Instructions by the Supreme Personality of Godhead are important even to Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the other demigods. And if one does not take advantage of the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who descends within this world for the benefit of all living entities, he is certainly very unfortunate. Lord Krishna answered the question of Maharaj Yudhishthira as follows. If I especially favor a devotee and especially wish to care for him, the first thing I do is take away his riches. When the devotee becomes a penniless pauper or is put into a comparatively poverty-stricken situation or position, his relatives and family members no longer take interest in him, and in most cases they give up their connection with him. The devotee then becomes doubly unhappy. First of all, the devotee becomes unhappy because his riches have been taken away by Krishna, and he's made even more unhappy when his relatives desert him because of his poverty. We should note, however, that when a devotee falls into a miserable condition in this way, it is not due to past impious activities, known as karma phala. The poverty of the devotee is a creation of the personality of Godhead. Similarly, when a devotee becomes materially opulent, that is also not due to his pious activities. In either case, whether the devotee becomes poorer or richer, the arrangement is made by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This arrangement is especially made by Krishna for his devotee just to make him completely dependent on him and to free him from all material obligations. He can then concentrate his energies, mind and body, everything for the service of the Lord. And that is the pure devotional service. In the Narada Pancharatra, it is therefore explained, Sarvopadhi Vinimuktam, which means being freed from all designations. Works performed for family, society, community, nation, or humanity are all designated. I belong to this society, and I belong to this community. I belong to this nation, or I belong to this species of life. Such identities are all merely designations. When by the grace of the Lord a devotee is freed from all designations, his devotional service is actually Nishkarma Jnani, are very much attracted by the position of the Nishkarma. in which one's actions no longer have any material effect. The devotee's activities are freed from material effects, and so these activities are no longer in the category of karma phalam, or fruitive activities. As explained before by the personified Vedas, the happiness and distress of a devotee are produced by the personality of Godhead, and the devotee therefore does not care whether he is in happiness or in distress. He goes on with his duties in executing devotional service. And although his behavior seems to be subject to the actions and reactions of fruitive activities, he is actually freed from the results of action. It may be questioned why a devotee is put into such tribulation by the personality of Godhead. The answer is that this kind of arrangement by the Lord is just like a father sometimes becoming unkind to his sons. Because the devotee is a surrendered soul and is taken charge of by the Supreme Lord, whatever condition of life the Lord puts him in, whether one of distress or of happiness, it is to be understood that behind this arrangement is a large plan designed by the personality of Godhead. For example, Lord Krishna put the Pandavas into a distressed condition, so acute that even grandfather Bhishma could not comprehend how such distress could occur. He lamented that although the whole Pandava family was headed by King Yudhishthira, the most pious king, and protected by the two great warriors, Bhima and Arjuna, and although above all the Pandavas were all intimate friends and relatives of Lord Krishna, they still had to undergo such tribulations. Later, however, it was proved that this was planned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as part of his great mission to annihilate the miscreants and protect the devotees. Another question may be raised: what is the difference between a devotee and a common man, since both are put into different kinds of happy and distressful conditions? The devotee by the arrangement of the personality of Godhead, and the common man as a result of his past deeds. How is the devotee any better than the ordinary karmi? The answer is that the karmis and the devotees are not on the same level. In whatever condition of life the karmi may be, he continues in the cycle of birth and death, because the seed of karma or fruit of activity is there, and it fructifies whenever there is an opportunity. By the law of karma, a common man is perpetually entangled in repeated birth and death, whereas a devotee's distress and happiness, not being under the laws of karma, are part of a temporary arrangement by the Supreme Lord, which does not entangle the devotee. Such an arrangement is made by the Lord only to serve a temporary purpose. If a karmi performs auspicious acts, he is elevated to the heavenly planets, and if he acts impiously, he is put into a hellish condition. But whether a devotee acts in a so-called pious or impious manner, he is neither elevated nor degraded, but is transferred to the spiritual kingdom. Therefore, a devotee's happiness and distress and a karmi's happiness and distress are not on the same level. This fact is corroborated by a speech by Yamaraj to his servants in connection with the liberation of Anjamila. Yamaraj advised his followers that they should approach only those persons who have never uttered the holy name of the Lord or remembered the form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord. Yamaraj also advised his servants never to approach the devotees. On the contrary, he instructed his messengers that if they meet a devotee, they should offer their respectful obeisances. So there is no question of a devotee's being promoted or degraded within this material world. As there is a gulf of difference between the punishment awarded by the mother and the punishment awarded by an enemy, so a devotee's distress is not the same as the distress of a common karmi. Here another question may be raised. If the Supreme Lord is all-powerful, why should he try to reform his devotee by putting him in distress? The answer is that when the Supreme Personality of Godhead puts his devotee in distress, it is not without purpose. Sometimes the purpose is that in distress, a devotee's feelings of attachment to Krishna are magnified. For example, when Krishna, before leaving the capital of the Pandavas for his home, asked Kunti Devi for permission to leave, she said, "My dear Krishna, in our distress, you were always present with us. Now, because we have been elevated to a royal position, you are leaving us. I would therefore prefer to live in distress than to lose you." When a devotee is put into a situation of distress, his devotional activities are accelerated. Therefore, to show special favor to a devotee, the Lord sometimes put them into distress. Besides that, it is stated that the sweetness of happiness is sweeter to those who have tasted bitterness. The Supreme Lord descends to this material world just to protect his devotees from distress. In other words, if devotees were not in a distressed condition, the Lord would not have come down. As for his killing the demons or miscreants, this can be easily done by his various energies, just as many asuras are killed by his external energy. Goddess Durga, therefore the Lord does not need to come down personally to kill such demons, but when his devotee is in distress, he must come. Lord Nrsingadev appeared not in order to kill Hiranyakashipu, but to save Prahlad and to give him blessings. In other words, because Prahlad Maharaj was put into very great distress, the Lord appeared. And when after the dense dark night there is finally sunrise in the morning, it is very pleasant. And when there is scorching heat, cold water is very pleasant. And when there is freezing winter, hot water is very pleasant. Similarly, when a devotee, after experiencing the distress of the material world, relishes the spiritual happiness awarded by the Lord, his position is still more pleasant and enjoyable. The Lord continued, "When my devotee is bereft of all material riches and is deserted by his relatives, friends, and family members, because he has no one to look after him, he completely takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord." Srila Narottama Das Thakur had sung in this connection, "My dear Lord Krishna, O son of Nanda Maharaj, you are now standing before me with Srimati Radharani, the daughter of King Vishabhanu. I am now surrendering unto you. Please accept me. Please do not kick me away. I have no shelter other than you." When a devotee is thus put into so-called miserable conditions and bereft of riches and family, he tries to revive his original position of material opulence. But although he tries again and again, Krishna again and again takes away all his resources. Thus, he finally becomes disappointed in material activities. And in that stage of frustration, in all endeavors, he can fully surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such persons are advised by the Lord from within to associate with devotees. By associating with devotees, they naturally become inclined to render service to the Personality of Godhead, and they immediately get all facilities from the Lord to advance in Krishna consciousness. The non-devotees, however, are very careful about preserving their material condition of life. Generally, therefore, such non-devotees do not come to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but worship Lord Shiva or other demigods for immediate material profit. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, therefore, Kushanta karmanam siddham yajata ihad devata. The karmis, in order to achieve success within this material world, worship the various demigods. It is also stated by Lord Krishna that those who worship the demigods are not mature in their intelligence. The devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, therefore, because of their strong attachment for him, do not foolishly go to the demigods. Lord Krishna said to King Yudhishthira, "My devotee is not deterred by any adverse conditions of life. He always remains firm and steady. Therefore, I give myself to him, and I favor him so that he can achieve the highest success of life." The mercy bestowed upon the tired devotee by the Supreme Personality is described as Brahma, which indicates the greatness of that mercy can be compared only to the all-pervasive greatness of Brahman. Brahma means unlimitedly great and unlimitedly expanding. That mercy is also described as Paramam, for it has no comparison within this material world, and it is also called Shukshma, very fine. Not only is the Lord's mercy upon the tried devotee great and unlimitedly expansive, but it is of the finest quality of transcendental love between the devotee and the Lord. Such mercy is further described as Chitmatram, completely spiritual. The use of the word matram indicates absolute spirituality, with no tinge of material qualities. That mercy is also called Sat, that is eternal, and Anatakam, unlimited. Since the devotee of the Lord is awarded such unlimited spiritual benefit, why should he worship the demigods? A devotee of Krishna does not worship Lord Shiva or Brahma or any other subordinate demigod. He completely devotes himself to the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sukadeva Goswami continued, the demigods headed by Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, and including Lord Indra, Chandra, Varuna, and others, are apt to be very quickly satisfied or very quickly angered by the good or ill behavior of their devotees. But this is not so with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. This means that every living entity within this material world, including the demigods, is conducted by the three modes of material nature, and therefore the qualities of ignorance and passion are very prominent within the material world. Those devotees who take blessings from the demigods are also infected with the material qualities, especially passion and ignorance. Lord Sri Krishna has therefore stated in the Bhagavad Gita that to take blessings from the demigods is less intelligent, because when one takes benedictions from the demigods, the results of such benedictions are temporary. It is easy to get material opulence by worshipping the demigods, but the result is sometimes disastrous. As such, the benedictions derived from the demigods are appreciated only by the less intelligent class of men. Persons who derive benedictions from the demigods gradually become puffed up with material opulence and neglectful of their benefactors. Sukadeva Goswami addressed King Parikshit thus, my dear King, Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva, the principal trio of material creation, are able to bless or curse anyone. Of this trio, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are very easily satisfied, but also very easily angered. When satisfied, they give benedictions without consideration, and when angry, they curse the devotee without consideration. But Lord Vishnu is not like that. Lord Vishnu is very considerate. Whenever a devotee wants something from Lord Vishnu first considers whether such a benediction will ultimately be good for the devotee. Lord Vishnu never bestows any benediction which will ultimately prove disastrous to the devotee. By his transcendental nature, he is always merciful. Therefore, before giving any benediction, he considers whether it will prove beneficial for the devotee. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always merciful, even when it appears that he has killed a demon, or even when he apparently becomes angry towards a devotee, his actions are always auspicious. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is therefore known as all good. Whatever he does is good. As for the benedictions given by the demigods like Lord Shiva, there is the following historical incident cited by the great sages. Once Lord Shiva, after giving a benediction to a demon named Rikashura, the son of Shakuni, was himself entrapped in a very dangerous position. Rikashura was searching after a benediction and trying to decide which of the three presiding deities to worship in order to get it. In the meantime, he happened to meet the great sage Narada and consulted with him as to whom he should approach to achieve quick results from his austerity. He inquired of the three deities, namely Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva, who is most quickly satisfied. Narada could understand the plan of the demon, and he advised him, "You had better worship Lord Shiva, then you will quickly get the desired result. Lord Shiva is very quickly satisfied and very quickly dissatisfied also. So you try to satisfy Lord Shiva." Narada also cited instances wherein demons like Ravana and Banasura were enriched with great opulences simply by satisfying Lord Shiva with prayers. Because the great sage Narada was aware of the nature of the demon Vrikashura, he did not advise him to approach Vishnu or Lord Brahma. Persons such as Vrikashura are situated in the material mode of ignorance, cannot stick to the worship of Vishnu. After receiving instruction from Narada, the demon Vrikashura went to Kedarnath. The pilgrimage site of Kedarnath still exists near Kashmir. It is almost always covered by snow, but for part of the year, during the month of July, it is possible to see the deity, and devotees go there to offer their respects. Kedarnath is for the devotees of Lord Shiva. According to the Vedic principle, when something is offered to the deities to eat, it is offered in a fire. Therefore, a fire sacrifice is necessary in all sorts of ceremonies. It is specially stated in the Shastras that gods are to be offered something to eat through the fire. The demon Vrikashura therefore went to Kedarnath and ignited a sacrificial fire to please Lord Shiva. After igniting the fire in the name of Lord Shiva to please him, Vrikashura began to offer his own flesh by cutting it from his body. Here is an instance of worship in the mode of ignorance. In the Bhagavad Gita, different types of sacrifices are mentioned. Some sacrifices are in the mode of goodness, some in the mode of passion, and some in the mode of ignorance. There are different kinds of tapasya and worship because there are different kinds of people within this world. But the ultimate tapasya, Krishna consciousness, is the topmost yoga and the topmost sacrifice. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, the topmost yoga is to think always of Lord Krishna within the heart, and the topmost sacrifice is to perform Sankirtan Yagya. In the Bhagavad Gita, is it stated that the worshippers of the demigods have lost their intelligence. As revealed later in this chapter, Vrikashura wanted to satisfy Lord Shiva for a third-class materialistic objective, which was temporary and without real benefit. The asuras, or persons within the mode of ignorance, will accept such benedictions from the demigods. In complete contrast to this sacrifice in the mode of ignorance, the Achana Vidhi process for worshipping Lord Vishnu or Krishna is very simple. Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that he accepts from his devotee even a little fruit, a flower, or some water, which can be gathered by any person, rich or poor. Of course, those who are rich are not expected to offer only a little water, a little piece of fruit, or a little leaf to the Lord. A rich man should offer according to his position. But if the devotee happens to be a very poor man, the Lord will accept even the most meager offering. The worship of Lord Vishnu or Krishna is very simple, and it can be executed by anyone in this world. But worship in the mode of ignorance, as exhibited by Vrikashura, is not only very difficult and painful, but is also a useless waste of time. Therefore, the Bhagavad Gita says that the worshippers of the demigods are bereft of intelligence. Their process of worship is very difficult, and at the same time, the result obtained is flickering and temporary. Although Vrikashura continued his sacrifice for 6 days, he was unable to personally see Lord Shiva, which was his objective. He wanted to see him face to face and ask him for a benediction. Here's another contrast between demons and devotees. A devotee is confident that whatever he offers to the deity in full devotional service is accepted by the Lord, but a demon wants to see his worshipable deity face to face so that he can directly take the benediction. A devotee does not worship Vishnu or Lord Krishna for any benediction. Therefore, a devotee is called Kama, free of desire, and a non-devotee is called Sarvakama, or desirous of everything. On the 7th day, the demon Vrikashura decided that he should cut off his head and offer it to satisfy Lord Shiva. Thus he took a bath in a nearby lake and went and without drying his body and hair, he prepared to cut off his head. According to the Vedic system, an animal to be offered as a sacrifice has to be bathed first, and while the animal is wet, it is sacrificed. When the demon was thus preparing to cut off his head, Lord Shiva became very compassionate. This compassion is a symptom of the quality of goodness. Lord Shiva is called Trilinga, a mixture of the three material qualities. Therefore, his manifestation of the nature of compassion is a sign of the quality of goodness. This compassion, however, is present in every living entity. The compassion of Lord Shiva was aroused not because the demon was offering his flesh into the sacrificial fire, but because he was about to commit suicide. This is natural compassion. Even if a common man sees someone preparing to commit suicide, he will try to save him. He does so automatically. There is no need to appeal to him. Therefore, when Lord Shiva appeared from the fire to check the demon from suicide, it was not done as a very great favor to him. Lord Shiva's touch saved the demon from committing suicide. His bodily injuries immediately healed, and his body became as it was before. Then Lord Shiva told the demon, "My dear Vrikashura, you do not need to cut off your head. You may ask from me any benediction you like, and I shall fulfill your desire. I do not know why you wanted to cut off your head to satisfy me. I become satisfied even by an offering of a little water." Actually, according to the Vedic process, the Shivaling in the temple or in the form of Lord Shiva in the temple is worshipped simply by offering Ganges water, because it is said that Lord Shiva is greatly satisfied when Ganges water is poured upon his head. Generally, devotees offer Ganges water and the leaves of the Bilva tree, which are especially meant for offering to Lord Shiva and Goddess Durga. The fruit of this tree is also offered to Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva assured Vrikashura that he is satisfied by a very simple process of worship. Why then was he so eager to cut off his head, and why was he taking so much pain by cutting his body to pieces and offering it in the fire? There was no need of such severe penances. Anyway, out of compassion and sympathy, Lord Shiva prepared to give him any benediction he liked. When the demon was offered this facility by Lord Shiva, he asked for a fearful and abominable benediction. The demon was very sinful, and sinful persons do not know what sort of benediction should be asked from the deity. Therefore, he asked Lord Shiva to bless him with such power that as soon as he would touch anyone's head, it would immediately crack and the man would die. The demons are described in the Bhagavad Gita as dushkrishtis, or miscreants. Kriti means very meritorious, but when du is added, it means abominable. Instead of surrendering unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the dushkrishtis worship different demigods to derive abominable material benefits. And although the dushkrishtis have brain power and merit, their merit and brain power are used for abominable activities. Sometimes, for example, materialistic scientists invent a lethal weapon. The scientific research for such an invention certainly requires a very good brain. But instead of inventing something beneficial to human society, they invent something to accelerate death, which is already assured to every man. They cannot show their mysterious power by inventing something which can save a man from death. Instead, they invent weapons which accelerate the process of death. Similarly, Vrikashura, instead of asking Lord Shiva for something beneficial to human society, asked for something very dangerous to human society. Lord Shiva is powerful enough to give any benediction, so the demon could have asked something beneficial from him. But for his personal interest, he asked that anyone whose head would be touched by his hand would at once die. Lord Shiva could understand the motive of the demon, and he was very sorry that he had assured him whatever benediction he liked. He could not withdraw his promise, but he was very sorry in his heart that he was to offer him a benediction so dangerous to human society. Devotees of the personality of Godhead never ask any benediction from Lord Vishnu or Krishna, and even if they ask something from the Lord, it is not at all dangerous for human society. That is the difference between the demons and the devotees or the worshippers of Lord Shiva and the worshippers of Lord Vishnu. While Sukadeva Goswami was narrating the history of Vikashura, he addressed Maharaj Parikshit as Bharata, referring to King Parikshit's birth in a family of devotees. Maharaj Parikshit was saved by Lord Krishna while in his mother's womb. Later, he could have asked Lord Krishna to save him again from the curse of a Brahmana, but he did not do so. The demon, however, wanted to become immortal by killing everyone with a touch of his hand. Lord Shiva could understand this, but because he had promised, he gave him the benediction. The demon, however, being very sinful, immediately decided that he would use the benediction to kill Lord Shiva and take away Gauri, that is Parvati, for his personal enjoyment. He immediately decided to place his hand on the head of Lord Shiva. Thus, Lord Shiva was put into an awkward position because he was endangered by his own benediction to a demon. This is an instance of a materialistic devotees misusing the power derived from the demigods. Without further deliberation, the demon Vrikashura approached Lord Shiva to place his hand on Lord Shiva's head. Lord Shiva was so afraid of him that his body trembled, and he fled from the land to the sky and from the sky to other planets until he reached the limits of the universe above the higher planetary systems. Lord Shiva fled from one place to another, but the demon Vrikashura continued to chase him. The predominating deities of other planets such as Brahma, Indra, and Chandra could not find any way to save Lord Shiva from the impending danger. Wherever Lord Shiva went, they remained silent. At last, Lord Shiva approached Lord Vishnu, who is situated within this universe, on the planet known as Svetvadeepa. Svetvadeepa is a local vacant planet beyond the jurisdiction of the influence of the external energy. Lord Vishnu is, in his all-pervasive feature, remains everywhere, but wherever he remains personally is a vacant atmosphere. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that Lord remains within the heart of all living entities. As such, the Lord remains within the heart of many low-born living entities, but that does not mean he is low-born. Wherever he remains is transformed into vacant. So the planet within this universe, known as Svetvadeepa, is also vacant loka. It is said in the Sastras that residential quarters within the forest are in the mode of goodness. Residential quarters in big cities, towns, and villages are in the mode of passion. And residential quarters in an atmosphere where indulgence in the four sinful activities of illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling predominates are in the mode of ignorance. But residential quarters in a temple of Vishnu, the Supreme Lord, are in vacant. It does not matter where the temple is situated. The temple itself, wherever it may be, is vacant. Similarly, the Svetvadeepa planet, although within the material jurisdiction, is vacant. Lord Shiva finally entered Svetvadeepa vacant. In Svetvadeepa, they are great saintly persons who are completely freed from the envious nature of the material world and are beyond the jurisdiction of the four principles of material activity, namely religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Anyone who enters into that vacant planet never returns to this material world. Lord Narayan is celebrated as a lover of his devotees, and as soon as he understood that Lord Shiva was in great danger, he appeared as a brahmachari and personally approached Lord Shiva to receive him from a distant place. The Lord appeared as a perfect brahmachari, and with a belt around his waist, a sacred thread, a deer skin, a brahmachari stick, and a rudra beads. Rudra beads are different from tulasi beads. Rudra beads are used by the devotees of Lord Shiva. Dressed as a brahmachari, Lord Narayana stood before Lord Shiva. The shining effulgence emanating from his body attracted not only Lord Shiva, but also the demon Vrikashura. Lord Narayan offered his respects and obeisances unto Vrikashura just to attract his sympathy and attention. Thus stopping the demon, the Lord addressed him as follows: "My dear son of Shukani, you appear very tired, as if coming from a very distant place. What is your purpose? Why have you come so far? I see that you are fatigued, so I request you to take a little rest." You should not unnecessarily tire your body. Everyone greatly values his body, because only with the body can one fulfill all the desires of one's mind. We should not therefore unnecessarily give trouble to the body. The brahmachari addressed Rikashura as the son of Shukuni, just to convince him that he was known to his father, Shakuni. Rikashura then took the brahmachari to be someone known to his family, and therefore the brahmachari's sympathetic words appealed to him. Before the demon could argue that he had no time to take rest, the Lord informed him about the importance of the body, and the demon was convinced. Any man, especially a demon, takes his body to be very important. Thus, Rikashura became convinced about the importance of his body. Then, just to pacify the demon, the brahmachari told him, "My dear Lord, if you think that you can disclose the mission for which you have taken the trouble to come here, maybe I shall be able to help you so that your purpose will be easily served." Indirectly, the Lord informed him that because the Lord is the Supreme Brahman, he would certainly be able to adjust the awkward situation created by Lord Shiva. The demon was greatly pacified by the sweet words of Lord Narayana in the form of a brahmachari, and at last he disclosed all that had happened in regard to the benediction offered by Lord Shiva. The Lord replied to the demon as follows: "I myself cannot believe that Lord Shiva has in truth given you such a benediction. As far as I know, Lord Shiva is not in a sane mental condition. When he had a quarrel with his father-in-law, Daksha, he was cursed to become a Pishchasa, a ghost. Thus he has become the leader of the ghosts and hobgoblins. Therefore, I cannot put any faith in his words. But if you still have faith in the words of Lord Shiva, my dear king of the demons, then why don't you make an experiment by putting your hand on your own head? If the benediction proves false, then you can at once kill this liar, Lord Shiva, so that in the future he will not dare give false benedictions." In this way, by Lord Narayan's sweet words and by the expansion of his superior illusion, the demon became bewildered, and he actually forgot the power of Lord Shiva and his benediction. He was thus very easily persuaded to put his hand on his own head, and as soon as the demon did that, his head cracked and was struck by a thunderbolt, and he immediately died. The demigods from the heaven showered flowers on Lord Narayan, praising him with shouts of all glories and all thanksgiving, and they offered their obeisances to the Lord. On the death of Rikashura, all the denizens in the higher planetary systems, namely the demigods and the Pitras and the Gandharvas, and the inhabitants of Jana Loka, showered flowers on the personality of Godhead. Thus Lord Vishnu, in the form of a brahmachari, released Lord Shiva from the impending danger and saved the whole situation. Lord Narayana then informed Lord Shiva that this demon Rikashura was killed as a result of his sinful activities. He was especially sinful and offensive because he wanted to experiment on his own master, Lord Shiva. Lord Narayana then told Lord Shiva, "My dear Lord, a person who commits an offense to great souls cannot continue to exist. He is vanquished by his own sinful activities, and this is certainly true of this demon who has committed such an offensive act against you." Thus, by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, who is transcendental to all material qualities, Lord Shiva was saved from being killed by a demon. Anyone who hears his history with faith and devotion is certainly liberated from material entanglement, as well as from the clutches of his enemies. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 88th chapter of Krishna, the deliverance of Lord Shiva.
Well read, thank you. Om Jnana Timirantasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshun Militam Dena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kodamahyam Dadhati Supadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Dutapada Kamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sadhanatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Shrivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Pradishana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Manchakolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'd forgotten how much is told in this chapter. In the beginning of the chapter, Parikshit Maharaj is asking why the devotees of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are generally poor, whereas the devotees of Lord Shiva are generally rich. Lord Vishnu lives in Vaikuntha, where he's served by thousands and thousands of goddesses of fortune. Lord Shiva is so poor, he lives under a tree. And yet his devotees are very opulent, whereas Lord Vishnu's devotees are generally poor. So in reply, first of all, the Sukadev Goswami says, well, Lord Shiva is the master of the material energy. His wife, Durga Devi, is Trigunamayi. She's the material nature personified. She personifies the three qualities, goodness, passion, and ignorance. So for Lord Shiva to offer material benedictions is not very difficult business. Lord Shiva is not affected by the material qualities, but he controls these three qualities. Srila Prabhupada explains that by worshiping different deities, one gets different results. Yanti Deva Vrita Devan Pitrin Yanti Pitri Vrita Bhutani Yanti Bhuteja Yanti Madhya Janopima. Worshippers of different demigods go to the demigods, but the worshippers of the personality of Godhead go to his abode. The material world is a product of the three qualities. So all the progress or all of the advancement in the material world is advancement in Maya. It's advancement in the interactions, in finding one's way through the interactions of the material modes of nature. The devotees of Lord Shiva are simply collecting products manufactured by the three qualities. Or the materialistic scientists are doing the same thing. The material advancement, Prabhupada said, means just advancement in satisfying the senses, especially the genitals, the tongue, and the mind. The mind is busy making up some idea of happiness for the genitals and the tongue. And in this way, one is becoming increasingly entangled in supposed opulence. Factually, this so-called advancement of civilization is the cause of entanglement in material existence. It's actually not advancement, but degradation. Nistrigunya Varjana, one is meant to rise above the qualities of nature, not become further entangled in them. Mam chayo vyabacharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samiti chaitan brahmabhuyaya gopate. By engagement in devotional service to the Lord, one surpasses the modes of nature. But by engagement in the service of the demigods, one becomes further entangled. Krishna says, Nistrigunya Varjana, rise above the material modes. Then Sukadeva Goswami says, actually the same question was asked by your grandfather, Yudhisthira Maharaj. Why are the devotees of Lord Shiva poor and the devotees of Lord Shiva rich, while Lord Vishnu's devotees are generally poor? And Sukadeva Goswami answered, Yasyaham anugranami adisheta dhanam shanai. Srila Prabhupada often quoted this verse. When I'm especially favorable to someone, I gradually take away all of his wealth. Then his family members desert him or lose interest in him, so he's doubly unhappy. Then the afflicted person tries to pull things together again to regain his lost wealth. And again, Krishna takes away the devotee's opulence, so that the devotee becomes materially unhappy. So one may question that what is this? The devotee is becoming unhappy. The Lord is putting his devotee into distress. But that's for the glorification of the devotee, for the welfare of the devotee, for the still greater happiness of the devotee. It appears to be a curse, but it's actually a blessing. The rewards given by the Lord are not material, they're spiritual, and the devotee truly benefits. The results received by the devotee are not a result of karma. They're the result of the Lord's blessings, whether in the form of wealth or poverty. It's not Krishna's unkindness. It's actually kindness to the devotee. Someone may say, well, if the devotee is in material poverty or material happiness, how is he different from an ordinary karmi who's also in material distress or happiness? And Prabhupada answers that the happiness or distress of the karmi is given by material nature, whereas that of the devotee is directly given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The happiness or distress of the materialist is for his contributes to his illusion, but the happiness and distress of the devotee are for the upliftment of the devotee. After being repeatedly put in distress, the devotee feels that he has no alternative but to surrender to Krishna. And that makes his life completely successful. In fact, it said when he's totally frustrated, he's advised from within to associate with devotees. And then, by that association, he naturally becomes inclined to serve the personality of Godhead, and the Lord helps him. But the non-devotees are very careful about preserving their material condition of life. Therefore, they don't come to worship the personality of God. They don't want their material life spoiled. They want some quick benedictions, material benedictions. And so they're less intelligent. But the devotees go only to Krishna. The devotees don't worship anyone but Krishna, and Krishna favors the devotee always. There's much more here. So much is told on this question in this chapter. Srila Prabhupada has elaborately discussed these points. And yes. The materialists like to worship Lord Shiva because he's Ashutosh, very easily satisfied. So he gives benedictions without consideration. But Lord Vishnu is very considerate. He considers whether the benediction will benefit the devotee. He doesn't give anything that will ultimately prove disastrous for the devotee. But Lord Shiva, you ask, he gives. So again, the materialists like to approach Lord Shiva. I'll ask, he'll give. So then there's a history here, you give a little more water, of Vrikasura, a demon who wanted to achieve some quick results. And he was searching, whom should I worship for the benedictions? So he met the sage Narada, and Narada told him, Lord Shiva, you want quick benedictions, Lord Shiva is your deity. He's quickly satisfied, so try to satisfy him. Mm-hmm. So the demon went to Kedarnath and began offering sacrifices in the fire to please Lord Shiva, began cutting flesh from his own body to offer to Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva, seeing this foolish demon offering sacrifices in that way, just to stop him, offered that, all right, no need to do that. The demon was even going to cut off his head to offer in the sacrifice. No need to do that. What do you want? I'll give you. So the demon said, I want the benediction. Whoever head I touch will fall off. And Prabhupada said, this is the materialists, the advanced scientists or others could create things for the benefit of human society. But Kshayayam Jagato Hita, they're very expert in creating things that cause destruction. That's what Vrikasura wanted. And Lord Shiva granted, yes, I promised. So actually you didn't need to do that. You could have just offered some Ganga water and bilva leaf. I would have been satisfied. But anyway, I'll grant your benediction. So then, as soon as he got the benediction, the Vrikasura wanted to test it. Not only test it, but he wanted to enjoy Parvati, Lord Shiva's wife. So his plan was that I'll touch Lord Shiva on the head and he'll die. I'll enjoy Parvati. And Lord Shiva began running. And to make a long story short, he was finally saved by Lord Vishnu, who appeared as a brahmachari, tricked the demon, and persuaded the demon to put his hand on his own head, thereby saving Lord Shiva. All right, are there some questions or comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna. You were saying that the happiness and the distress that is experienced by a devotee is not the same as by an ordinary kami who doesn't perform devotional activities. But is that only applying for a pure devotee, or when we talk about a neophyte devotee, is there also some mix of...
A neophyte devotee also may get special blessings from the Lord, so that he is raised from the platform of neophyte to become an advanced devotee.
So, but does that mean that, like, for a beginner devotee, the happiness and the stress is sometimes something that is directly under the vision?
I was wondering the same thing. For a pure devotee, it's all the result of Lord's mercy. For a mixed devotee, is some of it still his karma? Prabhupada said the fan is still turning. So what's the proportion and so on? Prabhupada doesn't comment on that here, but from one angle of vision, one can take it that everything is Krishna's mercy. Even the results of my karma are Krishna's mercy. And it's just a question of vision. Is that okay? Something else? Yes. Switch, you have to switch it on.
Hare Krishna. Yes. Would you like to maybe tell us some observations which you made over the years, practically how Krishna makes arrangements in the lives of his devotees? I would like to hear something about this.
Over the years, how Krishna makes arrangements for the devotee. Prabhupada's, our godbrother, Jayananda, in his, at one point, was afflicted with leukemia. And the government was also ready to give him money for treatment. But he thought, what is the use of treatment? He gave the money to Srila Prabhupada for printing Nectar of Devotion. And at the end, Prabhupada heard that Jayananda said, what is the need of this useless body? So Prabhupada, on those grounds, concluded that most likely Jayananda had gone back to Godhead. He took it as an arrangement from Krishna. Krishna could have done anything else, but Krishna gave him this disease, and he took it that, yes, what is the use of this material body? I don't have a lot of examples from personal experience to give you. The most common example Prabhupada cited was that of his own situation. He said that according to his karma, the astrologers said that he should have been exceedingly rich. And instead, Krishna destroyed his business, and Prabhupada was put into great difficulty. But just see the result. That's the example that most often comes to mind. I can't hear you. You have a practical example. Well, let's give you a practical microphone.
Yeah. We had ISKCON Leicester, the building. I think you were there. ISKCON Leicester.
ISKCON Leicester.
Yeah, when we had the explosion. And that was horrific for the devotees. And the japa beads were in the temple and devotees were running back to get it. Everything was destroyed. And luckily, everybody was safe and sound. And Panchatattva, who were the presiding deities in the temple, were untouched. So then, after the whole scenario, that the temple kitchen was burnt out, the temple could not be used any longer. So then, after a few years of looking for different places, we've managed to acquire 31 Granby Street, which was like a really big temple in the middle of the city, perfect for preaching, perfect for Harinams. And yeah, now we have 2 schools. We have over 300 devotees, and it's due to being reopened now tomorrow with Radha Madhava and Panchatattva. So that's a great example of how Krishna made the West his story first, but made it according to the devotees' desire and made it the best. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, like in life of a neophyte devotee or a struggling devotee, if is losing wealth or like be unhappy, so how can we differentiate? Because it's because of like his karmas or...
That's
like,
the same question. That was the first question. How do we know? Is it karma or is it Krishna's mercy?
Some aparadh, some Vaishnava aparadh or like something like that.
Like you're mumbling.
Maybe some because of like Vaishnava aparadh or something like
Vaishnava
aparadh.
Yeah, there can be so many different ways that things will happen. But in any case, the devotee takes it as Krishna's mercy. Yes. You have to switch it on.
I just wanted to say that I always find it interesting that Vrikasur was willing to cut off his own head in sacrifice to please Lord Shiva. And then at the end, he ended up, touching his head. And yeah, so in a way, like he still ended up losing his head.
Yeah, the sacrifice was actually completed.
Maharaj, it's interesting how pious were the demons at that time, he had like 100% that if he really cuts off his head, actually Shiva will come and will give him benediction. Such a strong faith.
He had faith. And he's ready to do sacrifice. So there was some understanding, more than today. But still, demons are demons. One way or another, they're thinking that by advancement in the material energy, they'll be happy.
I also wanted to ask about Lord Shiva. So we know there is statements like Vaishnava Yata Shambhu. So Lord Shiva is a pure devotee. And generally we know that the system is if you worship pure devotee, you get promoted to the spiritual world. How it is that worshippers of Lord Shiva, like it was stated in the chapter, they just get material opulence?
Because that's what they're looking for. Those who are, there are those associates of Lord Shiva who are in a different category and who are spiritually promoted. I think that's discussed in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. But generally those who are looking for material benedictions, that's what they get. They're not looking for spiritual advancement. And they get, of course, gradually by the mercy of Lord Shiva, sometimes they're also spiritually promoted. That Banasura, for example, was spiritually benefited. But generally, even they benefited, but Ravana also benefited, killed by Lord Ramchandra. Okay, behind you.
Hare Krishna. Sometimes people, due to karma or desire, may have an addiction towards sense gratification, or especially drugs, like whatever drug makes you addicted to it, like cigarettes or whatever. And then you can say, on the one hand, you can say, okay, this is someone who's addicted and he's trying to stop it, but somehow or other he's not able to stop it. So because of the addiction, it's not his fault. Like, I mean, that's what a materialist may conclude, that he's not at fault because he's trying to get rid of his disease, so to say, or his condition, but he's not able to do it because of his karma. And then it seems like he's not really able to act on his free will because he's trying to get out of a condition, but he's just not able to get out of it. So what I'm trying to ask is kind of like, is there like a limitation on that free will in that sense? Or?
No, he has free will, but he can't get very far. I might have a desire to make a lot of money, and I might really work hard at it using my free will. But according to my karma, I may not get anywhere, or I may lose my capital. So similarly, someone may try to get free from some bad habit, or someone might try to become good, or someone might try this, or someone might try that. But according to the limitations under which he's working, he may not get very far. Therefore, the material, formulas don't always work. Sometimes they appear to work, sometimes they don't work. If one takes to devotional service, then one can be freed. But the Sagunan Samiti Chaitan Brahmabhuyaya Gopate. Otherwise, the materialists, even if they get free from one addiction, they move on to the next addiction. He's freed from drugs, now he's after other forms of sense enjoyment. He's still captivated by the modes of material nature, whether he's up or down, or this way or that way.
Can I ask one more question connected to that one? So sometimes you may see someone who's practicing devotional service and is trying to apply the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, and he already left so many attachments behind, but then there might be something that he's still not able to leave behind yet. But how can we explain that this is happening? Is it just that the person is not chanting attentively, or what is the...
Well, there's each individual case needs inspection, but it may be that he's not following the regulative principles seriously, that he's not regularly hearing and chanting, that he's committing Vaishnava. There's so many different reasons why a person may not be getting the full result desired. On the other hand, if he's seriously taken to the process, the day will come when he'll be successful. Is that okay? The materialist, he may try, he may be successful, but even his success is a failure. Whether he's a success or a failure, he's a failure. If he fails, he's a failure. And if he succeeds, he's another kind of failure. He gets freed from his tobacco habit and he develops some other. He becomes, let's say, comes to a higher stage, he becomes addicted to philanthropy, which is also on the bodily platform. He goes to the heavenly planets and then he becomes a big enjoyer there. And he lives there for hundreds of thousands of years and falls back down and becomes an ordinary resident of Martyaloka, this material, this earth planet. So he's sometimes up, sometimes down, but he's not going anywhere. But the devotee is gradually making progress. Neha bikramana sosti pratyavaya vidyute. Gradually. Yes.
This is in regards to the second offense to the holy name. That Lord Shiva and the demigods, to consider them to be equal to or non-different from the names and qualities of Lord Vishnu. The first question is then, Lord Shiva and the demigods, their names, they're not the same as their name.
No.
Yeah, that's very clear. And then the second part is Lord Vishnu is to consider his names and qualities to be independent from him. So
independent from him?
Independent, like his names and qualities to be separate or independent from himself.
No.
So that would be an offense.
I think you're misreading in any case, to think that the names of Vishnu are independent, that the names of the demigods are independent of Lord Vishnu's name. Everyone is dependent on Vishnu. Their names, forms, qualities, activities, everything is dependent on Vishnu. Vishnu is independent, and his name is not different from himself.
So just to clarify then, in terms of being independent and separate, so one shouldn't think that Lord Vishnu's names and qualities are separate from him.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Abhinnatan nama namina. There's no difference between the Lord and his holy name. Name, form, qualities. Okay, we're quite out of time. Long chapter today, and I also gave sort of a long summary of it, so things went on quite a bit. But that's, I saw that these sessions are labeled as questions and answers, which is true. But I've always thought about it as Krishna book reading. Okay. Kirtan. Tulsi. Right.
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Ashrata Desatarini Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare
A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Anant Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadip Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri ki jai. Gangamai ki jai. Jamunamai ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Nice kirtan. Thank you very much. And thank you to all the devotees for coming. Folks are still here, and we'll be here again tomorrow. Thank you all. Hare Krishna.